So thank you for joining this webinar. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. To introduce myself, I'm Shashi, and I'm part of Citrix Ready team leading the mobility and the desktop ecosystem. So today's webinar is about how to deliver Citrix XenApp touch-enabled applications using hopTo. And we have Barry with us, who is VP Sales and Marketing from hopTo, along with us as a presenter of this webinar. So once again, thank you for attending this webinar, and I would like to welcome you all to this Citrix Ready technical webinar series. Here we showcase how Citrix and our products, our partners have integrated to deliver valuable products and solutions to common problems faced by our customers today. To talk about the Citrix Ready program, Barry, could you please switch to the next slide?
Sure.
Thank you. So to talk about the Citrix Ready program, Citrix Ready is an end-to-end technology partner program which showcases and recommends third-party products, solutions, and services that demonstrate compatibility with the other Citrix products. Here, customers can quickly, easily find the solutions recommended by Citrix, and the easy place is the Citrix Ready marketplace, wherein we have listed more than about 30,000 products which are compatible with the Citrix products. So you could navigate to citrixready.citrix.com to get to the Citrix Ready marketplace. And to learn more about the Citrix Ready program, please navigate to citrix.com/partnerprograms/Citrix Ready. So just to talk about the verification process or how a partner could get their product onto the marketplace, Citrix Ready team has defined certain test kits for the partners to execute and get their products verified as Citrix Ready verified products. So these test kits could be downloaded from the download section from Citrix Ready portal, and wherein we have listed multiple test kits like for thin clients, for desktop applications, mobile applications, or mobile devices as well. So once your product is verified as Citrix Ready, your product will be listed on the Citrix Ready marketplace. And once you become a partner, you will be eligible to a lot of technical and marketing benefits as well, which is provided by the program. And these benefits includes demo licenses, podcasts, and also we can do joint webinars like this. So before we start the presentation, I would like to mention that if you have any questions during this webinar, please use the question panel on the right-hand side, and we will take your questions maybe during the webinar, or if appropriate, or during by the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A session where we will take up these questions. We'll be having few more poll questions as well during this webinar. Please answer those as well. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome Barry. Barry, could you please introduce yourself and take us through your presentation about your product? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Shashi. I appreciate it. So Shashi said, I'm Barry Flanagan with hopTo. I lead our sales and marketing. I have been involved in the Citrix space for quite some time. I actually joined Citrix in 2000. I worked there almost 12 years in a number of different roles, technical and sales and marketing roles. So I've been in the space quite some time. My first exposure to Citrix was actually WinFrame 1.6. So when I had the opportunity to join hopTo about a year and a half ago, I was really excited about the possibilities about what we could do to take our product that we had originally delivered on top of RDS for Microsoft, because the company had not had much of a relationship with Citrix at the time, and move towards building on top of the Citrix platform. And that's really where we're focused today, and we're going to talk about the product we're about to release at Synergy, our integration with Citrix XenApp, and our integration with the HCX technologies that Citrix provides. hopTo is focused on enabling you to touch enable your existing applications running on XenApp and provide you a great user experience for those legacy applications so that you and your users have a much better user experience and have the ability to get the most out of those applications without having to redevelop or change those applications or go to new versions of those applications. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So a quick agenda that we have. First, we're going to talk about what the problem is and what your options are to solve that problem. There are a number of different solutions out there, and the truth is one of them may be a fit in different scenarios for you. In some organizations, especially larger organizations, you may find that you have to use several different solutions, and we'll talk about what each one of those are and how they fit. Then we'll go into what specifically is hopTo and how does it work. So we'll show you a live demo of hopTo, and then we'll close out, talk about licensing, and take some additional questions at the end. So let's talk about delivering existing apps to mobile devices. So there are a number of things you have to think about when you're looking at the existing applications that you have, and what are the different scenarios that are involved. So of course you have to think about what kind of devices do your users have? Are users allowed to bring in their own devices? What are those devices? Are they limited? How many remote workers and road warriors are connecting back to your corporate environment? How does that impact IT? What applications do they have now? And of course, you have to look at other things, especially larger organizations. If you're affected by mergers and acquisitions, how do you integrate those applications, those different mobile devices that those users may have as a result of M&A activity, and what are the limitations on those? And then, of course, you need to consider the usability of the applications and the overall user experience. So those are different factors you have to think about, and then we drill down specifically to the puzzle of delivering existing apps to your mobile devices. There are a few things you need to evaluate. So first of all, what is your Windows app installed base? For the most part, when we're talking existing apps, or we're talking apps that run on Windows. Of course, Windows has a massive installed base. And then we'll talk about the explosion of mobile devices, of course, and then what are your different alternatives that you can use to deliver these existing legacy applications to your mobile devices. So let's start off with your Windows app installed base. So first we have some data from a survey done by Dell and Forrester. This was a survey of 200 IT decision makers about the types of applications that were installed in their environment and that ran on their PCs. So you can see here within the slide, the average for locally installed apps was 752 across all the different organizations. Of course, we have on the low end for smaller organizations 146 local apps, up to almost 2,000 local apps for organizations above 25,000 users. So there's a huge installed base of applications that you have to consider. Of course, you're not likely to need all those applications on mobile devices, but you may find in scenarios that you do need a significant number of those applications to be able to be delivered to your mobile devices. So, there's this perception that I hear today that I heard a lot when I first joined Citrix in 2000. When I was in the field, I can remember a lot of people said, oh, there's no use for something that helps deliver Windows apps because in 2 years, everything's going to be a web-based application. I heard that a lot in 2000. And you hear that a lot today for mobile apps. There's this perception that all apps are going to be delivered, be rewritten to deliver on mobile. And if you've been in IT for some time, it's just not true. In fact, I got this quote here from Microsoft Build 2016 by John Sheehan. He's a Microsoft Distinguished Engineer, that there are currently 16 million Win32 and .NET apps. So there's still a massive number of those applications out there and that people want to access from a wide range of devices, including mobile. And of course, legacy apps just tend to stick around. You mentioned in my earlier example, when I joined Citrix in 2000, a lot of people seem to think that every app would be web-based, or now what we call cloud-based, in very short order. And of course, you hear the same thing about mobile today, but in technology, legacy technologies tend to stick around for a very long time. So I just saw this recently, Reflection, which is now owned by Attachmate, actually has a 3270 and 5250 emulation to attach the mainframes and AS400s available now for the iPad. So if you look on this first slide, if you look very closely, you can see the copyright by IBM for the system that they're connecting in the screenshot. The original copyright is 1980. So, these technologies tend to stick around for a long time, and you can expect the same thing's going to happen with all the different types of applications that you support. So it's definitely important to consider how you can deliver those applications to mobile devices and what your alternatives are. And I have been to some shows and talked to some customers where there's just a built-in assumption that the only alternative is to rewrite all those applications, and that's not really the only alternative. Of course, many of you are involved in Citrix. You know that Citrix is one of those alternatives that we'll certainly talk about. So, of course, it's not just about Windows apps. It's about the devices you want to get those Windows apps to. So IDC put out a survey into last year that said by 2018, 88% of all devices sold to IT will be mobile devices. And of course, according to the net market share, 90% of all mobile devices today are iOS or Android based. So getting Windows apps to these devices that are not running Windows is the real crux of the problem. And of course, while phablets are a popular form factor now, there will continue to be new form factors, but that's not going to change what the issues are related to getting these existing apps to these mobile devices. So let's talk about what the different alternatives that are available are. So of course, you know, a very common alternative you hear a lot about is redeveloping the application. So we'll talk about the different scenarios involved in redeveloping the application and what the costs are and when that makes sense. And then we'll talk about a new technology recently came out in that last few years, user interface refactoring or app refactoring. So we'll talk about those, some of the things about that involved in the decision with doing that. Then of course transport, which is transporting your existing apps to mobile devices. Citrix does a fantastic job of that today. We'll talk about where the additional capabilities you get from Citrix and then where there are some opportunities to add additional value. And then we'll talk about what that additional value could be with transport and transform. And that's where hopTo is focused. And I want to be clear, transform does not mean transform the app. It means transform the user's experience within the app. So you don't have to change the app itself. So let's jump right in. So redeveloping your existing application. So there are a number of things that you have to think about here when you're looking at that as an option. So the first thing you have to think about is the apps that you're considering are the apps that are developed internally, especially if you're a larger organization. You may have a number of apps that were developed internally, or are they apps provided by third-party ISVs? And of course, your decision-making process can be substantially different depending on what the answer is to that question. So if it's developed by a third-party ISV, of course, you're going to have to wait for your ISV to deliver a mobile application. In some cases, they may have already delivered an application, and in many cases, you may be quite happy with that mobile version of the application. But we have certainly talked to customers who have been unhappy with the mobile version of the application. Some vendors are more capable than others of rewriting apps for mobile platforms. And of course, because many of these apps have been around for a long time, you know, it could be an app could have been in development on Windows for 10, 15, 20, sometimes 25 years or more of legacy functions that are built in that app. And then there may be some functions that just do not make sense to transfer to a mobile device. They made sense when they were developed for Windows, and of course, they had to continue to support those functions. There are some functions that just don't make sense because mobile is such a different paradigm. And of course, if your apps are internally developed, if you have some that you're considering for that, there are a number of other things that you have to consider, and of course it can be costly and time consuming, but in some cases, of course, that may be the best answer. So let's talk about what it would cost when you're actually doing this for internally developed applications. So I have this survey here from a company called Kinvi Group. So Kinvi is a company focused on delivering tools to help customers internally develop mobile applications. So they took a survey of enterprise mobile application decision makers, and they found that for over half of the people surveyed, it took between 7 and 12 months to develop and deploy one app. And the average cost, as you see at the bottom, was $270,000. So these were actual enterprises that developed internally some basic applications. So you can see substantial for one app, 7 to 12 months of engineering time, $270,000 cost on average. You can see almost 20% were actually $500K to $1 million. And then I have some data from some third parties that will actually go and develop an application for you. So first one is from Savvy Apps. They say that if you're developing an app for a smartphone or tablet that has any kind of complex UI or has a significant backend, it's going to cost you somewhere between $250,000 to $1.5 million. So a very substantial investment. And then 9Hertz is another company that had some recent data they put out about this. It says that if you're going to do a simple app on a phone, that's a minimum of 300 hours of development time. And if you get to a multifaceted or highly multifaceted app on an iPad, for instance, you're talking somewhere between 600 and 900 hours of development time. So it could be a very, very substantial investment. And of course, as I said earlier, there are certainly times where that makes sense. Obviously, small businesses aren't likely to make these types of investments, but larger companies certainly have and will continue to make these types of investments because there are times where it makes sense. But when you think back to the number of apps that are involved in your environment, even from a small environment with several hundred up to close to 2,000 locally installed applications, you're not going to make that decision for all those apps, not even a significant majority. It's probably going to be a very small number, probably single-digit number of apps where that decision is going to make sense. So the next one to talk about is app refactoring. So when you consider this solution, there are a number of different things that you have to think about. So what these solutions do is give you a designer that allow you to create an HTML5 front end for your application. So a number of these vendors have popped up in the last few years. Most of them claim to support both Windows apps and web apps in the beginning, but a lot of them have found that there are some significant limitations in how they recognize fields on Windows apps. And oftentimes, because most app vendors don't completely follow all the rules that Microsoft put out for developing input fields and controls, their tools can have significant challenges recognizing those. So in fact, we've heard some of them that originally supported Windows apps have pulled back and moved to web apps only. Of course, when you redevelop a front end for these, if this is a third-party app, some of these tools may require you to have access to source code, so it may not be available for that. But if it doesn't require access to source code, if the vendor puts out a new version of the app, you may potentially have to rebuild that front end. And what we've heard from partners and customers and from our own research from the materials put out by some of these companies, it can take anywhere from a week to a month to do one app. So this actually is something to consider as opposed to redeveloping your app. You may find some apps where this makes sense. Again, a limited number where this makes sense to redevelop that front end, just the UI for that application, not do anything with the back end. Of course, you have to consider if it's going to work on Windows apps at all, which it may not, and if it's only web apps, how many web apps can you actually do when you can spend that amount of time, especially when you have to redo it every time that web app front end changes. And the cost involved. These solutions can be costly, of course, not nearly as costly as completely redeveloping app, but those costs can certainly add up. So those are things to consider when you're looking at UI refactoring. Then, of course, another solution to consider is Citrix, and my guess is the great majority of you on the phone have actually are leveraging Citrix a great deal. Of course, the Citrix solution has been around for a very, very long time. They've been using the any message since before I even joined Citrix. Of course, Citrix does a fantastic job of giving you scalable app delivery and deployment, comprehensive management, a great deal of features. It's very secure. So it's a really rock-solid platform that's incredibly capable. But Citrix has recognized that there can be a challenge in delivering specifically the mobile devices apps that are designed for a mouse and keyboard. So of course, and I'm sure you've heard about users that have reported, some issues with doing some of these apps, just tapping in the right place in the app, accessing, menus and fields within the app, or even just trying to close a window. It can certainly be a challenge for users. So Citrix has made some steps in this direction to help improve the user experience. So the first step that they took is the Mobility App Sdk, where if you have access to the source code, you can rewrite the front end. Of course, you have to have access to the source code, which means it's an internally developed app, and you have to have engineers. So that may be a solution that works for you, and it may be actually an alternative compared to some of the other solutions we've already talked about. Then they came out with a Mobility Policy Pack, which is designed to recognize when you tap an input field in a Windows app and bring up the keyboard. It does a really good job with those fields that comply with the Microsoft standards, but there can be some user challenges with that. Of course, a lot of fields don't comply with those standards, so they can be challenging. And of course, when the keyboard comes up, it can cover up the field because the keyboard takes up half the screen. So Citrix has made some steps in that direction, and that's where we saw the opportunity to take our product and build on top of what Citrix is doing. And we've been in this space for quite some time. Our company started off doing this for Office, for consumers, hosting Office for Windows in the cloud. 5 years ago, we started working on that solution to build a completely refactored version of that. And we wanted to move that solution to a B2B solution for existing Windows applications and on top, of course, of an existing Citrix infrastructure. So that's the goal here, is to take these existing apps and touch enable them, transform the user experience without requiring you to do any changes to the app itself. There are no app changes required. There are not even changes required to storefront. You're not going to publish a different version of the apps. So it makes it very quick to deploy, very easy to use, and it's a much lower cost than your alternatives. And you can do a wide range of applications. So I consider this, compared to the other alternatives are really focused on, they're much more vertical. You'd go deep with a few applications. This solution allows you to really improve the user experience for a lot of these applications and do it quickly and easy across a wide range of applications. Much faster you can do with the others. But of course, we're not completely changing the app itself. So before we go into how we do that, Shashi, do you want to talk about how we can work, how Citrix views this before we move into the solution itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to mention that, like, even from an end user, if I'm an end user, I would definitely like to see the application, even though if it is launched from the Citrix receiver, I would like to have its functionality as a native app. And I believe hopTo is giving the option when, if I'm clicking on any edit field, it automatically brings up the keypad, which will add to the field. You have the native experience. So I really like this product.
Good. I appreciate that feedback, Shashi. And one thing I should mention that I haven't said before, we've actually been working very closely with Citrix on this. Back in last year, we released our first Citrix offering, which ran on top of Citrix integrated with Storefront and with XenApp on the back end, but was delivered over RDP because we did not have access to HCX and ICA. But when we showed that to Citrix, we got very positive feedback from the XenApp product team. So we got their help. They delivered us a HCX SDK, so we could then start taking our capabilities and building those on top of Citrix's HCX capabilities and integrating that. So we started that in late last year. We announced it at Summit, Citrix Summit in January, that we're in the middle of this project we called Project Mobilis, and now we're diving down in deeper with it. And we have a live demo to show you today to show the capabilities. And we're planning to launch this as Synergy. Of course, this is a joint collaboration between our companies. So that's our target that we've put together. And we're expecting to hit that date. Of course, this is software, some things could come up, but that's our expectation, is that by Synergy, we'll be able to deliver this product to the market. And so while we're talking, there's actually a poll up on the screen asking you which some of these factors that you've actually considered and what are the issues for you. So we've gotten a lot of people vote. We'll give you another moment here to vote on this, and then we'll move on to review our product itself, what is hopTo, and then we'll go into our live demo.
Even I'm excited to see the demo and the features of your product.
Yes, thank you. All right, so we've had this up for 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll, and then we'll jump back into the slides. Okay, so what we're delivering here is, as I said earlier, a touch-enabled user experience for your existing legacy applications that you're delivering to your end users via XenApp. So this builds on top of the XenApp infrastructure. We'll show you an architecture slide to show how it fits in. And it does this not just for Windows apps, but one of the new capabilities that we've been working on is to do this for Internet Explorer-based applications as well. And we'll talk about why that's important. And as I said earlier, the goal here is to give you a much better user experience for these applications on mobile devices. And it's what we call a mobile app experience. So it's transport your apps with Citrix and then transform the user experience with hopTo without having to change your application in any way. So let's talk about what mobile app experience is. All right, so transform those existing apps, both Windows and IE. As I said, the experience and the interaction itself. We provide you the ability to have touch button control of the app with auto-recognize input fields, automatically zoom in and reposition. We give you access to local resources, and on IE, and you'll see this in the demo, we make IE feel like Safari. And this is what we're putting together to announce its synergy. So this is hopTo for Citrix HDX, and we're combining the technology that Citrix provides in HDX with Max to deliver for you and for your users an overall great user experience. So let's talk about a few of these features before we jump into the demo. So the first one is Max Control. So what Max Control does is allow you to create touch buttons to control your app. You can actually map app functions to touch buttons to give you touch button control of that app. So it's very customizable. You can nest menus and commands within it, and we'll show you this in the demo, but it makes that app much easier to interact with. The next one is Max Zoom. This builds on top of what Citrix started down the path with a mobility policy pack. A frustration for users is when they're running a remote app on Citrix on a mobile device and they tap an input field and it doesn't recognize it. So the keyboard doesn't come up, and that can be a real challenge. So we're focused on improving that experience. Not only recognizes the input field and bringing up the keyboard, but actually zooming in and repositioning the field so you can see it when the keyboard pops up. And then, of course, Max Cam. Max Cam allows you to leverage the camera on the mobile device so that you have the ability to scan barcodes, QR codes, insert photos directly into your Windows app. And then a Max IE. So what Max IE is focused on is taking what we've learned from Citrix, one of the top 2 or 3 most popular deployed apps on XenApp today, Internet Explorer. We heard at Summit that it's generally in the top 2 or 3 most popular deployed apps on XenApp today, and that's part of the reason that Citrix has this new secure browser capability that they've just announced, because so many people are doing web-based apps that require IE. And what we're trying to do here is make IE on XenApp feel like Safari, make it feel in touch enabled, make it much easier to use, and do it for IE apps that have back-end applications that are required. So Java, Flash, Silverlight, and ActiveX, and we'll show you a few of those in the demo. And the other thing that's really, I really like this feature set is we give you native editing. So when you're in an app on IE and you need to go do editing, go do an input into that app, we give you completely native editing in that. And you'll see this in the demo. So you get autocorrect, you get voice editing, and everything feels instant. And we'll show you that, and we'll talk about more as we go through how specifically we do that. So before we jump into the demo, I think Shashi is going to take a few questions while I get the demo ready. I just want to talk briefly about the architecture. So this is just obviously very high level. Obviously you have your device with the client on it. You connect over HDX to the storefront. You have XenApp servers running in the background. Each one of the XenApp servers will need to run the hopTo agent. And I'll show you what that agent looks like. It's very, very lightweight. It doesn't use a lot of resources, very low impact from a memory perspective. It just adds some additional capabilities that we have to your Citrix delivery groups, to your XenApp servers. Gives you those additional capabilities so the client can take advantage of those. I want to stress there's no changes to the apps, as I said before, and you don't have to change storefront. You don't have to publish the app separately. It's very, very simple and easy for you to use. So Shashi, would you like to check out the questions while I get the demo ready?
Sure. Yeah, Barry, so we have a couple of questions. I'll just read out to you. So the first one is, how does hopTo impact XenApp scalability?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I do hear that regularly. So as I said earlier, it's a very minimal impact for RAM and CPU. So we do run our agent on the server. So there'll be a minor impact on scalability, but extremely, extremely minor. I mean, I don't remember the exact number, but it's a low amount of RAM usage by the agent running on the server. You'll see when you go through an install, it's very, very low impact, very easy to use. So just a minor impact on scalability. And I imagine for most customers where scalability is very, very important, you're leaving quite a bit of overhead available for expanding. So I doubt you would see any impact at all in scalability, and if so, it would be extremely minor.
Okay, thanks, Barry. I have one more question before we jump on to the demo. So does hopTo only run on iOS or Android devices? Do you support Windows tablets as well?
That's a very good question. So when we first put out our product on RDS in the beginning, we made an iOS client and an Android client. So in this partnership with Citrix, we've originally focused on iOS. So Citrix delivered us the HDX SDK that's on iOS. They found that the great majority of the customers, there's been more demand for iOS from a Citrix perspective, but it's certainly possible to do it for Android specifically. Of course, it would require some great collaboration with Citrix to get access to the code for Android, but we know how to do that. We've written Android clients before with all these features you've seen except for Max IE. We haven't developed Max IE on Android yet, but all the other features we've developed, and it would not be the great challenge. We just have to get access to that, and there would require some work from Citrix, of course, to create the same kind of SDK on Android. Now, on the Windows side, we've actually heard that request from a lot of customers. Or they may have a Surface tablet, but they're accessing an app, a legacy app that doesn't have a mouse, designed for mouse and keyboard. It's something we're certainly considering for the future. It would be a different model, of course, and I'm not an engineer, definitely not a developer, but my guess is in some ways it would be easier because you can build right on top of the existing receiver client. We could build right on top of the receiver client, and the tools already exist for that from Citrix. So, and that way it'd be easier. It'd be a little more of a challenge because our client people are mostly focused on iOS and Android, so there would take some time there, but I certainly think it's possible. But today, the solution's focused on iOS.
Thank you, Barry. So I'm seeing a lot of questions asked here. So once we're done with the demo, probably by the end, we'll take up those questions as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me flip over to the right screen. Okay, can you see my screen, Shashi?
Yes, Barry.
All right, so I wanted to start off. This is our client. Before I go back to the screen where you see the list of apps, I wanted to start here just to demonstrate that this actually is leveraging HDX and ICA from Citrix. So I'm actually running in this session. You can see the receiver toolbar at the top and our toolbar actually at the bottom. But I'm running a tool from Citrix called HDX Monitor. You can see it's using ICA 1494 while we're then in this connection using receiver. So let's go home. You can see, look that you're very familiar with. I've had some people ask me about the bubbles in the background. Citrix has changed the background in many of the receiver applications, but the iOS one still has the bubbles. So the first app that we're going to run is called Amazing Charts. So I wanted to find some apps that are business applications that are useful to a wide range of people. So one of them, this is an EMR application, electronic medical records applications. So we're going to go ahead and start this app up. Of course, because we're on a demo, I may have actually, let me in. It looks like my client timed out while I was waiting. So let me sign back in. All right, we'll start up Amazing Charts. So this app is a very large memory-intensive application. It can take quite some time. Of course, this worked fine just a few minutes ago. I did not do my proper praying to the demo gods. Let me go back, make sure my VPN is connected, and we'll go back and run the app. I apologize. This is the dangers of doing live demos. So go ahead and start the application. Yes, it happens to all of us. You know, you just got to keep your fingers crossed when you're running them. So of course I'm still go ahead, Shashi.
No, there you go. I think it's getting launched.
Yeah. So you know, I still have my session with a HDX monitor running in the background. This app comes up. I'm actually going to go into HDX monitor for a moment to show you a few things. So you can see leveraging 1494, we're pulling up the connection, and then I'll do the app switcher and switch over to this app. So it brings up a login screen. So I'm going to go in as demo user. So when you see it, recognize the login field and raise the screen. Make sure I get the password correct for this demo user, and then hit login. So it's going to go in and log this application. You'll see the toolbar down at the bottom is already changed. So I put together just a custom toolbar for this app. It actually, if you look at this toolbar, it actually matches what you'd see if you pull down these menus. So you know, got the file menu, the shortcuts that are there, the edit menu, the view menu, and the patient menu. So all those are there. So I don't claim to be an expert on EMR applications, but I have found a few things I can show you in this app to show you how we can touch enable this application and make it feel much more user-friendly. So let's go into this option here called User Preferences. So we'll tap that, so that brings up the preferences for the user to run within this application. You can see just bring that up instantly. Next we'll go into the templates. So these are actually patient treatment templates. So I'm going to tap on one of these patient treatment templates, highlight there, and then I'm going to tap in this template text box down here at the bottom. You'll see it automatically recognizes that's an input field and brings up the keyboard and repositions. So you see that there. And so we'll close that out in this app, and then let's go into the view menu, and we'll do one more thing in this app, and that's view codes. So what these are, CPT codes, I believe that stands for Common Procedure Templates. So I'm going to change this to starts with because there's a lot of codes in this database, and I'm just going to type in heart. So it's going to go and do a search for all the different codes that begin with the phrase heart, so you can see that there. So you can already see with this app, I haven't had to go and access the menus at the top, which can of course be challenging for some of these applications. You know, I didn't have to you know, dig down and tap on something multiple times, and when I tap into an input field, it automatically recognizes it. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out. Hit quit there. All right, and go back to the main menu. So next we'll open up a contact relationship management app, Goldmine. So Goldmine, of course, been around for a long time, and it has evolved, but still, you know, a large number of users for this application. So you can see this is the app itself, and you can see that this app's been around for a long time and it's been evolved over time. So the first thing I'm going to do up here on the right, I'm going to tap in the search list box, and it recognizes this input field and pops up the keyboard. And then I'll show you a few of the menu controls that we created here. So I can tap go to and go to last record in this contact list. It'll pop down there, go to first record. And just a couple, you know, we can go and just tap on opportunities and open that up. And one thing I should make clear, I didn't make this clear at the beginning, I apologize. What I'm actually doing here, so you understand I'm not just running this Windows, I'm on my Mac running the QuickTime Player doing a recording from my iPad Air. So you're seeing a live mobile device here. So this is what you're actually seeing is I'm running my iPad Air here and just tapping inside this application itself. All right, so we'll close this one. Just a couple more on this briefly. I'll show you QuickBooks briefly, just to show another application that many of you may be using. I'll just switch back over to the QuickBooks window. QuickBooks is takes quite some time to start and bring up the focus. Close this out so we can get into it. There it goes. All right, click open on that. So you can see part of our auto zoom functionality. When it brought up the zoom percentage, it recognizes that there's one window on the screen, so it zooms in automatically. Of course, you can turn that on or off. If you need to, you can see where you still have access to the receiver toolbar. Put that back up. So the app is finishing up starting. And one thing you'll notice with this app, the front screen of this app actually is relatively touch-friendly. They made a lot of touch buttons. The challenge is once you get into the app, once you get beyond this first screen, then it becomes more and more difficult. And there's not an iPad version of QuickBooks for Windows. They have a cloud version that's really for very small businesses, so not nearly as capable as the Windows version. So just briefly show you one thing here. You've seen a lot of the buttons now, but create an invoice. It runs create an invoice wizard. Tap in the memo field. It recognizes it, brings up the keyboard. So I'm going to quit that, and before I show you the MaxCam feature, I want to flip over because I imagine there's some questions on this. Flip over and show you how you actually create those buttons. So we go over here, on here to the desktop. So this is the desktop on the XenApp server. You can see, you set it up with your Citrix servers. It automatically pulls in your list of published applications. Then you go in and look at the list of apps that you have. And this is actually, I can go to the full list, but this is actually the one for QuickBooks. And you can go in. This is an existing toolbar. So for activities, if I tap Edit, you can see that's actually you just put in a name. When you put in a menu, there's no shortcut required for that. And then when there's a button that you want to create under that, if I go Edit that, you'll see Create Invoice. And what it's actually doing is executing a keyboard shortcut for the app. So we send over a virtual channel a keyboard shortcut back to the server, and that gets executed on the app running on the server. And to the user, it's like they were sitting at the machine, of course. That's part of remoting. We're just remoting keyboard shortcuts. So it makes it very, very easy. In fact, I created this toolbar for QuickBooks myself. I'm certainly not a QuickBooks expert, but I did it in less than 10 minutes. So it's very, very easy to do. So let me flip back over to my HCX session, and I want to show you MaxCam, and then we'll go into MaxIE. Just briefly, I want to show you MaxCam. So MaxCam is the feature that allows you to access the local camera. So I'm going to tap here in the barcode field, right? And then I'm going to tap Insert, and then Barcode. And you can see it brings up the camera. Let me reposition the barcode that I have here. Scan that, and then it reads the barcode and inputs that right there into the application. So makes it very, very easy for you to access. Access to the camera itself. All right, so we're going to go ahead and quit this app. We're running a little long here on the demo, so I want to get over because I definitely want to be able to show you MaxIE. So I'm going to disconnect from this. And then we're going to go into MaxIE. So one thing you'll notice is different right away. We have not quite finished the UI port for MaxIE from our original Citrix Forward EP client over to HCX. We're expecting to have that done by Synergy. It's close, but it wasn't quite good enough to show on the demo, so we're going to show it on the existing client. Because there are some unique things that we do with this with respect to view and UI management that take a little while. So, and they impact some things related to the receiver client. So we're almost done with that, but not quite. So the first thing you'll notice, I hit a XenApp browser published, or IE browser published on XenApp. You can see I hit this website, whatismybrowser.com. It shows you this is IE running on XenApp, but it doesn't look like IE. It looks very much like Safari. It's very similar to Safari, and you'll see it's a very, very smooth scrolling experience. We actually do some analysis of the page before we send the pixels over. We don't send all the pixels. In some case, we have it rendered locally, so it really improves the user experience. So let's jump into some apps. So the first app we'll jump into is a web-based electronic medical records app. So this is a publicly live demo. I'm really going to be running without a net here. We'll log right into this. And you notice when I tapped into the login field, of course, it recognized it, automatically brought up the keyboard and repositioned the field. Hit login. So go ahead and bring up this electronic medical records app. I'm just going to go one thing in this app to show you some capabilities. I'm going to go and add a new event. So first I'm going to tap into this title field. So tap in that field, you see it's native editing, the local iOS keyboard. You're getting autocorrect there, all the functions you'd expect from iOS. Let's go ahead and erase what's there. Tap test, edit. You can see you get the autocorrect. One of the things it actually does, the reason it's so instant, is we're actually painting it locally, using the local and sending the edit in the background back up to the app running on the XenApp server. So if you remember local text editing that Citrix had for the Win32 client a long time ago, even when I was in the field for Citrix is when that came out, we're actually doing something very similar. So it really improves the user experience. The other thing I like to show is dropdown. So instead of getting a small Safari or small IE dropdown, you get a Safari dropdown. It's big and wide, very easy to move, you know, very, very responsive. And the last thing I'll show in this app is, actually let's tap in this field, comments. Because we support native editing, you can do voice edits. And you can see these voice edits are instantaneous response. So that's really demoing without a net. So you can see that was very, very fast and responsive. So that's an electronic medical records app. Hopefully you can see there that that really improves the overall user experience. I'll just show a couple more because we want to leave time for questions. First I will show, let's jump right into this ActiveX control. So one of the challenges we have with ActiveX controls, we've heard from customers they need to support ActiveX controls, but it's difficult to find ActiveX controls on the web. They're mostly for, you know, applications that require big backend. So what we did is we wrote our own ActiveX control with a bunch of input fields to show you the capabilities. So you can see, I'll tap in this input field. You know, I can do, get there at end, test, edit. See, that works very well. I can go back in that input field and you can do, this is a voice edit. So, you know, voice enabling an existing ActiveX control application. Of course, you can run into some challenges with voice editing I'm sure you're all very familiar with. And then the other thing I like to show here is the drop-down. So you can see the background there, and if I scroll up, you'll see it even more. In the background, it's actually populating the ActiveX control combo box. We read that and then create the Safari-like combo box. So, so you can, it's a dramatic difference between those two combo boxes. So really improves the user experience. So I want to close the demo. One really powerful app, a Silverlight demo. Very similar to
Barry, I think we have lost your audio. I'm not sure whether my audio is being... Okay, great. Okay, till Barry joins back, we'll just wait for a couple of minutes, and I'd like to take some questions at the end as well. So we'll just wait for 1 or 2 more minutes. Okay, it seems like Barry has been offline. Sorry for that. And what we would do is we'll take up these questions, and we'll let Barry know about these questions, and we will try to reply back to these questions via email. And this, as mentioned earlier, also this webinar will be recorded, and we'll make it available online soon. With all this information, we'll send out a communication as well. So I'm sorry for the last 5-10 minutes wherein we have to. Okay, I think Barry is online. If I think we'll just give 1 more minute because I see the screens are changing. If Barry doesn't get online. Yes, Barry, thanks for joining back.
I apologize. It just go to webinar just kicked me off audio all of a sudden, so I apologize for that.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. So I was just mentioning that I think we are right at the end of the demo, and we will be taking up the questions. But let me know if you have something else to discuss over the demo. Yeah. Please go ahead.
I'm going to close out with one thing. I'm inside this CRM-based application now. We took a moment to get it started. Of course, that's the dangers of using live applications. So I can go in here and show you an edit in Silverlight. You can see it actually overlays a local text edit there. So I can type that in and then, release that, and it instantly updates that on the app running back on XenApp. And the last thing I'd like to show you is a drop-down in Silverlight, and this is where you can really see the difference in the drop-down. So if I tap in this company drop-down box, it drops down the Silverlight drop-down. We read it, and then you get this nice, wide, easy-to-use drop-down box that's very similar to what you'd expect from Silverlight. So, or from Safari. So that is Max.ie. As I said, we'll be showing both these technologies at Synergy. Our expectation is to launch for Synergy. We'll have Max.ie integrated into the product, into HDX. We're just on the final stages of the UI. That's what we have together. I will mention one more thing before we flip back to the slides, is that with the configuration for Max.ie is actually very, very simple. You put in the URL, you validate the URL is real, and you name it. And you pick the IE level that you want to support. Very, very simple. Doesn't require a lot of work on the back end. All right, so let's talk briefly about pricing, and then we'll jump into questions. So the pricing for hopTo for Citrix HDX, if you talk perpetual, per user is $55. Concurrent is $75. We also offer 2 subscription options. You can do per user per month for $281 a month, or concurrent per month for $381 a month. Of course, we have basic support and maintenance included, and there are obviously additional opportunities and volume discounts that are available. So, Shashi, you want to start taking a look at the questions? You can get more information on this product at hopto.com/Citrix. You go there, we have a whole list of resources that are available for you for the product. And with that, I want to focus on, with this technology built on top of Citrix, you can quickly and easily touch enable your existing Windows and IE applications, access your local resources, and combine together the technologies of HDX and Max to get a great user experience. So with that, we'd be happy to take some questions. So I'm going to look, Shashi, I know you've already been looking at the questions, so why don't you start off with a few?
Sure. I think most of the questions were on the licensing part, and you have covered those. So I'll quickly go through the other questions which have been asked. So the question is, does we need any other third-party solution for form factoring the application to mobile device, or is this solution good enough?
So as I said, when we're talking about those different solutions, I mean, you may find that there's some applications that you really want to completely redevelop. So I've heard about a company for their expense app that everyone accesses, a large company. It's a really difficult to access on a mobile device, even over Citrix, just because the user experience is difficult within the app itself. So, you know, you may have solutions like that where you want to redevelop that app, or you want to do something like a UI refactoring solution, or even the mobility app SDK that Citrix provides. The way I see our solution, I think you have a menu of choices, you know, and those choices are for, you know, those other choices, the UI refactoring and app redevelopment. You may choose those on occasion, but you're probably not going to choose those a lot because they're expensive and they take a long time. And of course, you have a lot of apps. So we cover the great range of applications. We do it very quickly and easily and give you a much better user experience without having to transform the application itself at all.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, what version of XenApp or Xendesktop is compatible with hopTo?
So we support this on, you know, of course, we got Citrix Ready for 7.8. We've done testing down to 7.6. I don't envision there'd be a lot of problems with older versions, but we haven't tested all the older versions. We hope to get that as part of our final QA. On Xendesktop, you know, we're focused on XenApp, but I did have someone on my team. I've always thought this should work with Xendesktop if you enabled VM-hosted apps. So we did a preliminary test, and we were able to access VM-hosted apps in the exact same way as XenApp. But we haven't done our complete set of testing on that. We expect to do that in the future, and I expect that we'll be able to support not only Xendesktop but remote PC. But I can't say that's definitive yet. We haven't looked at all the different scenarios. Of course, you know, the QA team will want to go and validate that all the different parts and pieces work, but preliminary testing has been very positive.
Thank you, Barry. The next question follows. Which versions of Internet Explorer are supported?
So when I talked to engineering about this, the thing that they said and we heard from them is that we'll support back to IE7. So if your app requires back to IE7, we should be able to support that. My understanding is that it should be possible to even go to older versions of IE, but we just haven't had the ability to test those or the time. But we probably could support even older versions of Internet Explorer. But out of the gate, we're focused on IE7 through the latest versions.
So in the interest of time, we may have to conclude this webinar now. But there are many more questions that have been listed there, for which we will send it out to you. Probably we'll reach out to these partners or whoever asked the questions via email and answer those questions.
All right, thank you so much, Shashi. I appreciate. Thank you to Citrix, Shashi, to Rubel, who also have this set up. We're very thankful for your help on the webinar, and of course with the XenApp product team, with our contacts there, getting us access to the HDX SDK. If you are going to Synergy, we will be showing this live at Synergy. We'll have multiple apps. We'll show our HDX integration with Windows apps and with Max IE. We'll have all the features there. We will have some giveaways. You know, we're in a booth on the expo floor, so we'd love to see you stop by. Of course, you can always follow up with us, sales@hopto.com. You can reach out to us if you want more information, and we will be publishing this presentation on our website for access, and we can send it out as a follow-up.
Thank you, Barry. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. So with that said, we are about to end this webinar. Thank you all for attending today's webinar in the Citrix Ready Technical Webinar Series. This concludes our broadcast. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.